What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. If you guys want to support the channel, you can click on that whatnot link in the description down below. You'll get a free $15 when you sign up to spend on magic cards, and you'll be supporting the channel when you do it. Or you could just become a patron, join us on the weekly voted patron Deck Tech, and last but not least, you could just like, comment, and subscribe. Special shout out to my high contributing patrons, Newsome, you rock. Now let's get into today's video with Madison Li. And guys, this is a Jeskai artifact deck that packs a punch. Now, anytime we can cheat things into play, you know you're dealing with a pretty powerful commander, and Madison Li is no different. She has a lot of utility, she's got card advantage, we can buff our creatures up a little bit, but 9 times out of 10, I'm looking at that broken reanimation ability. Now we can get something like a Portal to New Phyrexia, get it in our graveyard using something like a Shirakai Genesis engine, and then reanimate it for free. This deck really wants to prioritize casting a lot of low-cost artifacts, discarding our high-costed artifacts, and then reanimating them with Madison Li for a broken board state. Now, we are on Displacer Kitten as well. Just having that ability to blink some of our most broken ETBs every time we cast an artifact is just going to be extremely broken, especially when we're running cards like Cityscape Leveler, Mirror Battlesphere, and Brass's Tunnel Grinder. There's just a lot of ways to get a ton of value out of this deck. And if you're familiar with artifact decks in general, that kind of just goes infinite out of nowhere. If you get the right pieces on the battlefield that are just synergistic with the deck already, you can cast your entire library. So if you want to see how that's done, how we generate infinite energy, infinite power, and draw our entire deck, let's get into this deck tech. The first thing we're going to touch on is the awesome ETBs we get to run in this deck. The first thing we want to do is start generating some energy, that way we can start activating our commander. Electrostatic Pummeler, Robo Brain, the Motherlord Excavator, and T45 Power Armor are going to be amazing pieces for this, especially when we can blink them, sacrifice them, reanimate them, and just generate a ton of value overall. Gonti's Aetherheart is also going to be one of the best cards in the deck. Now, it does have that extra turn clause, but honestly, we want this to sit on the battlefield for as long as possible. That way we can generate a ton of energy off of this thing. We also have this nifty artifact that lets us get an energy whenever a creature enters the battlefield. A lot of creatures are in this deck, and a lot of them are artifact creatures, so it just synergizes perfectly. Especially when we drop something like a Mirror Battlesphere onto the battlefield, we're just going to generate 5 energy off of that, and then we can just activate our commander again. Portal to Phyrexia is another bomb in this deck. We're just going to start reanimating it, sacrificing it, and then reanimating it again, and winning through attrition. Our opponents cannot withstand that for very long. Contagion Engine, another really broken thing that we can just reanimate, blink, reanimate, and it's just going to start draining our opponents and wiping their entire board state. Saheeli the Sun's Brilliance is another way we can copy these artifacts. That way we have another way to generate ETBs off of them. Goblin Engineer is amazing in this deck. The Goblin Engineer package is kind of like Brass's Tunnel Grinder, Sword of Hearth and Home, and the Ever-Flowing Well. If you don't know how this works, you grab Sword of Hearth and Home first, then you can start blinking the Goblin Engineer to grab your Brass's Tunnel Grinder, then you can grab the Ever-Flowing Well the third time. Now you have a really good engine that generates a ton of value by looping Brass's Tunnel Grinder and the Ever-Flowing Well every single turn to draw a ton of cards, leading you to the victory. Thought Monitor is another very good artifact that we can blink. It enters, draws 2 cards, and we can keep doing that a ton of times. Solemn Simulacrum, another solid one to loop in and out of the graveyard. The Steel Flagship is another very good card. It's just going to sit on the battlefield and generate a ton of value, especially since it doesn't trigger on cast. It's just going to sit there. We're going to start looping our artifacts in and out of the graveyard, and we are going to be generating a board-winning board state whenever we do that. Imri's just another solid way to mill some cards and cast some artifact cards from our graveyard. And then we have Displacer Kitten, a solid way to blink whatever we want whenever we're casting those spells. Notably, blinking a Portal to Phyrexia every single time you cast a spell will just win you the game. Now let's talk about those infinite combos. Now some of these are complicated, some of these are more simple than the other ones, so I'm going to try to explain them as best as I can. The first thing we need to do is lower the cost of our artifact spells using something like a Foundry Inspector, Enthusiastic Mechanaut, or Ethereum Sculptor. Once we've done that, that, we can use Sensei's Divining Top and the Reality Chip to cast the Sensei's Divining Top from the top of our library, netting us infinite artifact casts and allowing us to draw our entire library. But how does that win us the game? We use Kaikar Wind's Fury, Psymaster Thopterus, or the Steel Flagship to generate a massive unstoppable board state. From there, we can easily activate the Gonti's Aetherheart, take an extra turn, and attack for the win. Moving on to our next combo, it's a little more convoluted but still very good in the deck. We have Scrap Trawler and Mirror Retriever, two very good cards if we're not going infinite, and really good cards if we can go infinite. And then we have Krark Clan Ironworks. Now, how this combo works is we do need one of the cost reducers, same as the other combo, and then Scrap Trawler will cost 2 mana and Mirror Retriever will cost 1. Then once we have Krark Clan Ironworks on the battlefield, we can go ahead and loop these two in and out of our graveyard, netting us infinite artifact spell casts. Assuming we have all 3 pieces of these on the battlefield, all we have to do is sacrifice the Mirror Retriever to Krark Clan Ironworks to generate 2 mana. Then we can easily sacrifice Scrap Trawler for 4 mana, retrieving the Mirror Retriever from the graveyard using the Scrap Trawler's ability. From there, we cast the Mirror Retriever, sacrifice it again, and then the Mirror Retriever can retrieve the Scrap Trawler. Again, this goes infinite. We will net 1 colorless mana off of this, and that will lead us to infinite artifact spell casts. The win with this combo looks very similar to the previous one. We just need a way to benefit off of casting our artifact spells, and again, this will at the very least net us infinite energy with our commander. Now, this can result in us drawing our entire deck if we have a Joyro Weatherlight Captain, Whirlwind of Thought, Jeskai Ascendency, or Riddlesmith on the battlefield, and that will get us to the key pieces we need to win the game. Moving on to the core of the deck, I want to talk about Jeskai Ascendency for a second. Notably, our commander does have a tap ability. So every time we cast a non-creature spell, this will go ahead and cause us to untap our commander, getting us even more value. But even on top of that, there is a ton of really broken creatures that have tap abilities in this deck. Shirakai Genesis Engine gives us insane card advantage while getting what we need to in the graveyard. Goblin Welder is insane. We can sacrifice some fodder artifact and bring something like a Cityscape Leveler onto the battlefield. Goblin Engineer has that insane synergy with Brass's Tunnel Grinder and the Ever-Flowing Well. Oswald can tutor up any key pieces we need and put them directly onto the battlefield. Like I said, this is a Jeskai's Ascendancy deck. Once you get this card on the battlefield, you're going to feel invincible, and it's going to turn all of your value engines up to an 11. Not to mention, if we go infinite, we can draw our deck using this and give our creatures infinite power, which is insane. Now's probably a good time to mention we are running Echo of Eons. That way we can shuffle our entire graveyard back into our library. That way we don't accidentally deck ourselves. Liberty Prime Recharged. This is just a super fun card to play with that's going to synergize with our commander and hit like a truck. Lizelle is also going to be incredibly synergistic in this deck, just essentially doubling up on the energy counters we get from our commander. So now whenever we cast an artifact, we get 2 energy instead of 1. Pretty busted. We also have some more bombs to reanimate, like Illustrious Wanderglyph and Wormcoil Engine, just incredible cards that generate a pretty decent board state pretty fast. Aetherworks Marvel not only gives us more energy, but additionally has a broken activated ability. Automated Assembly Line, just a solid way to generate more energy and a board state. Cityscape Leveler, again, more bombs to reanimate. Faithless Looting to get anything we need to into the graveyard, that way we can reanimate it. Encroaching Mycosynth can turn all of our permanents into artifacts, so now our Whirlwind of Thought and our Jeskai's Ascendancy we can easily reanimate. Even our Kaikar, our Joyro's Weatherlight Captain, again, just turning them into artifacts is just going to make them more synergistic and incredibly easy to reanimate with our commander. Wake the Past is another solid way to end the game. Maybe it's very late, everything we need's in the graveyard, boom, it all comes back and we become the threat instantly. Smothering Tithe not only generates a ton of value by itself, but we also have a couple of cards that trigger off of artifacts entering the battlefield, so this is going to trigger them a ton. Windfall, just a solid way to get some card advantage and again, get some of the things in our hand into our graveyard. Moving on to the vegetables, it's super simple. We are running all of the talismans, all of the signets, and then Soul Ring. This is efficient ramp that easily triggers our commander. Moving on to our interaction package, we have an Offer You Can't Refuse, Arcane Denial, Swan Song, Swords to Plowshare, just really efficient removal, and then we are running Bottle Cap Blast. I'm excited to test this one out. The Improvise is going to be really easy to utilize with this deck, and then we can generate some treasure tokens while taking out some impactful creatures. Blasphemous Act, just really easy to get rid of all the creatures, and then we have Organic Extinction. A lot of these cards are artifact creatures, so having a one-sided board wipe with Improvise is actually insane in this deck. And that's going to do it for the deck altogether, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I would like to thank my high contributing patrons, Praetor, Newsome, Excessum, Chicken Salad. You guys are amazing. Really keep the channel going. With that being said, I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I will see you in the next one.